Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at the Law of One. You're going to be talking about how it relates to Christianity.
Okay.
Now, we've kind of gone over some of the principles of the Law of One before in previous episodes, but today we're going to get into something that I think is going to be really fascinating, and that is how it compares to Christianity.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of see where these two systems, overlap, where they
Yeah,
diverge.
exactly. And, I think especially for people who are maybe familiar with Christianity, it'll be really interesting to see kind of what the Law of One says about it and how it views it. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really fun conversation.
Definitely. And one thing that's really cool about the Law of One is that it doesn't present itself as like the be all and end all, right? Like it's not trying to say that it's the only way to connect with the creator. It's really more like a description of universal principles.
Hmm.
So when we're looking at how it relates to Christianity, it's not about saying one is better than the other, but just kind of seeing, like you said, where they overlap, where they differ.
Right. Exactly. And so I guess one of the kind of like most obvious places to start would be with this idea of love, right?
Hmm.
Because both the Law of One and Christianity talk about love as being this really important concept.
Absolutely. I mean, in both systems, love is like the core principle. It's like the essence of the creator. But where they kind of diverge is in how that love is expressed.
Okay, so how so? Like, what are some of the ways that they differ?
Well, like for instance, the law of one really emphasizes service to others. Like
Yeah.
that's seen as like a primary way to embody
Oh,
love.
that's interesting. Yeah.
Whereas, in Christianity, a lot of times it's more about acts of charity,
Mhm.
compassion.
Right, right. Okay.
So same kind of core principle, but the way it's applied is a little different.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. And I guess that kind of ties into another point that I was thinking about, which is this idea of interconnectedness, right?
Yeah.
Because um, I've definitely encountered that both in the Law of One and in Christian teachings, like this idea that we're all connected.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely another big overlap between the two. The Law of One talks about the unity of all creation, where everything is interconnected. And then you have Christianity with the concept of the body of Christ, where believers are united through their relationship with God.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I guess it's fascinating to me how, these two systems that on the surface seem so different can actually arrive at such a similar understanding of, our existence.
Exactly. I mean, it really speaks to the idea that there are these universal truths that are, kind of woven into the fabric of reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess another similarity is that both systems really emphasize this idea of spiritual growth, right? Like that we're not just, stagnant beings, but that we're constantly evolving.
Right. In the Law of One, they talk about increasing your vibrational frequency, aligning with love and light, and, kind of moving towards greater unity with the Creator. And then Christianity, talks about becoming more Christ-like, through faith and prayer and living according to God's will.
So they both agree that we're on some kind of spiritual journey,
Hmm.
but I guess, maybe they have different ideas about like the destination or the path that we take to get there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're all on this journey, but we might have different maps.
Right, right. Different compasses.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of brings us to the next point, which is this idea of seeking guidance from a higher power,
Mhm.
right? Because in Christianity, you have prayer. And then in the Law of One, there's this idea of seeking from the Creator. Is there a connection there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the methods might differ, but I think the underlying impulse is the same. It's this recognition that we don't have all the answers, and that, seeking guidance from something greater than ourselves can be really helpful.
Right? Like we're tuning into, I don't know, like a cosmic radio station or something.
Exactly. Whether you call it prayer, meditation, or just kind of seeking inner wisdom.
Yeah. I like that. That's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we've kind of established that there is some pretty significant common ground between the Law of One and Christianity, at least when it comes to, like, those core principles.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of overlap, but I think where things start to get a little more I don't know, complex maybe is when we start looking at some of their specific beliefs and, interpretations.
Right. Like, where do they really start to diverge?
Yeah, like for instance, their views on free will versus destiny.
Ooh, okay. That's a big one.
Yeah. You want to dive into that next?
Let's do it.
So yeah, I think a really good example is their contrasting views on free will.
Okay.
Like, the Law of One really emphasizes free will. Like it portrays our existence as kind of like a grand cosmic experiment
Mhm.
where we are like co-creating with the creator. And
Yeah.
every choice we make shapes not just our own journey, but like it contributes to like the evolution of consciousness itself.
Okay.
It's big, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really powerful idea. But then how does that jive with the Christian belief in God's preordained plan,
Yeah.
right? Like how do those two things work together?
That's a great question. And I think the way the Law of One kind of addresses this is by suggesting that the creator, in its infinite wisdom, set in motion the principles that govern reality.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't actually interfere with our individual choices.
Interesting.
So even when we like stray from love and light, make mistakes, those experiences become part of our learning process
Oh, okay.
and ultimately, help to guide us back to, unity with the creator.
So it's less about like a rigid script that we're following and more about just like having this boundless playground where we're just learning through everything that we do.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Oh,
all about like experiencing and learning and growing. Oh.
okay. Okay, that makes sense. And that actually kind of leads us to another, I guess, big difference between the two systems, which is this whole idea of reincarnation versus the Christian concept of heaven and hell. Like, how does the law of one approach, what happens after this life?
Right. Well, in the Law of One, reincarnation is viewed as like a cycle of learning and growth.
Uh-huh.
It's like a spiral almost, that continues until we finally achieve complete unity with the creator.
Wow.
So it's not about like, you know, being punished or rewarded. It's really about just like continuously refining our understanding of, love and wisdom through all these different experiences that we have.
So it's almost like we're in like a cosmic school and we're just taking classes over and over again until we finally like master the curriculum.
Yeah, kind of. It's a much more, I guess you could say, forgiving system
Yeah, for sure.
than maybe some traditional views of the afterlife.
Yeah, I remember some of my exams. They weren't quite as forgiving.
I bet.
So, okay, so you have that, that cyclical view of things,
Hmm.
and then, with Christianity, it's often presented as like a one-time judgment.
Right.
And then you're either sent to heaven or hell.
Exactly. Yeah, it's much more of a kind of a binary
Right, right.
situation.
And that kind of leads into another big difference, I think, which is like how each system views the nature of God,
Okay.
right? Because the law of one has this whole concept of intelligent infinity,
Yeah.
which seems, pretty far removed from the Christian trinity of like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're definitely coming at it from different angles.
Yeah.
The Law of One presents God as this all-encompassing unity, this like boundless consciousness
Hmm.
that permeates all of existence. It's a very abstract concept. It emphasizes the interconnectedness of everything and the idea that we are all like essentially part of the divine.
Right. So it's almost like God is the universe and the universe is God. It's just this like vast interconnected web of being.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And Christianity, on the other hand, offers a much more personal God.
Mm.
Like a loving father figure, who guides and protects his children.
Yeah. Like I feel like that's a much more like, I don't know, relatable and accessible concept for a lot of people.
Definitely. I mean, it provides a lot of comfort.
Right. So, okay. So we've kind of explored how Christianity and the law of one approach, some of these big fundamental concepts.
Hmm.
But I'm kind of curious, like, what does the law of one actually say about Christianity specifically?
Ah, good question.
Like, does it see it as, a valid path, or does it kind of dismiss it as something that, people will eventually outgrow?
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting, I think.
Hmm.
Because the Law of One doesn't actually claim to be like the only true path, right?
Okay.
It recognizes the inherent value in all sincere efforts to connect with the creator.
Hmm.
And that includes, Christianity. So it's not like they're saying, you have to follow our way or our way is the best.
Hmm.
It's really more about, acknowledging that there are all these different paths that people have developed over time.
So it's almost like the law of one is this like cosmic observer.
Mhm.
And it's just like, hey, humans have come up with all these different ways to connect with the divine, but it's not necessarily saying that one is better than the other.
Right, exactly. What matters most is the sincerity of your seeking and, your alignment with those core principles of love and light.
Right, right. And that actually brings up another concept that I wanted to talk about, which is this whole idea of harvesting in the Law of One.
Oh, yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah, harvesting, it's kind of a complex concept, but essentially it's like this idea that at certain points in the cosmic cycle, there's like a natural process of spiritual evaluation, I guess you could say.
Okay, so is this like are we talking like a cosmic sorting ceremony
Oh, not exactly.
where like souls are evaluated and then they get sent to different levels or something?
It's not quite that dramatic. But the law of one suggests that, individuals are kind of assessed based on like their vibrational frequency, their alignment with love and light, their service to others,
There.
things like that.
So it's not so much about like, punishment or reward. It's more about just recognizing like where we are on our spiritual journey.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like a progress report more than a final judgment.
That's a good way to put it. And so I guess what's really interesting about this is that it doesn't exclude people who follow like traditional religions.
Right.
Like it suggests that individuals from any faith, including Christianity, can still progress spiritually as long as they're embodying those core principles of love and service.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not about, what specific beliefs you hold or what rituals you practice.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really about the essence of your being.
So like a devout Christian could potentially be harvested alongside somebody who's like never even set foot in a church.
That's the implication.
Yeah, okay. And their outward beliefs matter less than their like inner alignment with those universal principles.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty radical.
It is.
It really throws a wrench in the whole "my religion is better than yours" argument.
It really points towards a much more inclusive understanding of spirituality, I think,
Yeah.
where the focus is on, individual growth and the shared journey towards unity with the creator,
Hmm.
regardless of the specific path we choose.
Okay, that makes sense. So, with all this in mind, like with organized religion, seemingly losing its grip on a lot of people,
Ugh.
could the law of one be like a philosophy that resonates with people who are, seeking spiritual meaning outside of those traditional structures?
That's a great question. And, it's definitely something to think about because I think we are seeing a lot of people who are kind of disillusioned with organized religion, right? They're
Yeah.
looking for something that's more personal, more experiential. And the law of one, with its emphasis on like, individual exploration, direct connection with the creator,
Yeah.
and a more universal understanding of spiritual principles, it could definitely appeal to those folks.
It's almost like it offers a framework for understanding the universe and our place in it.
Right.
But then it's up to each individual to kind of like fill in the details based on their own experiences and insights.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not about like, dogma or rigid beliefs. It's about, like you said, exploring, experimenting, and finding your own truth.
So to kind of wrap things up here, like while the law of one doesn't explicitly predict, a mass exodus from Christianity or anything like that,
Right.
it does seem like its principles could resonate
Mhm.
with people who are, seeking a more individualized and experiential approach to spirituality.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a key takeaway here. And, it's not about predicting the future, but just recognizing that the spiritual landscape is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And the law of one, with its emphasis on personal growth, free will, direct connection with the creator, it could definitely play a role in shaping the spiritual journeys of, many people who are looking for something different.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
I think this is something that we could probably talk about for hours and hours, but unfortunately we are out of time for today.
Right.
So for those of you listening, we encourage you to keep seeking, keep questioning, keep your hearts and minds open to all the possibilities that exist out there, both within and beyond organized religion. Who knows what you might discover.
Exactly. And, may your journey be filled with love, light, and a lot of amazing discoveries.
Until next time.